My name is Emily. I'm 29, married to Ryan for 3 years, and working in marketing at a company I thought I could trust. But one business trip changed everything. It started as a regular work trip to Chicago. I was supposed to attend meetings during the day and unwind with colleagues in the evenings. Nothing out of the ordinary. Ryan was supportive as always, reminding me to be careful and promising to call me every night. The first 2 days went smoothly. I presented my project, networked, and even managed to sneak in some sightseeing. But on the third night, things took a turn. After dinner, some coworkers invited me to a bar nearby. I hesitated, knowing I had an early meeting, but eventually agreed. I didn't want to seem antisocial. The bar was dimly lit, crowded, and loud. I felt a little out of place but tried to enjoy the night. Mark, a coworker I'd known casually, kept buying me drinks. He was charming, funny, and attentive. I should have stopped him, but after a long week, I let my guard down. Hours passed. The drinks kept coming. I started feeling dizzy and disoriented. Mark was suddenly closer, his hand brushing against mine, his words slurred but insistent. I wanted to leave, but my body betrayed me. I was too intoxicated to stand properly. I don't remember everything, but I remember him forcing himself on me. I remember the shock, the fear, the helplessness. When it was over, he promised me silence. He said, "Don't say a word, Emily, it'll ruin everything." I nodded, terrified. I wanted to scream, to tell Ryan to run away, but I stayed silent. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and tears on my pillow. Mark was gone, acting like nothing had happened. I felt dirty, broken, and alone. At work, Mark was polite but distant. I pretended everything was normal, afraid to raise suspicion. Ryan called that night. I lied, saying I was tired. Days passed, and the weight of that night grew heavier. I felt trapped between fear and shame, between protecting my marriage and protecting myself. And then, without warning, Ryan began to notice something was wrong. He asked questions I couldn't answer. I smiled and changed the subject. But inside, I was unraveling. I was a prisoner of my silence. Ryan and I had what most would call a good marriage. We met in college, fell in love, and built a life full of laughter, late-night talks, and shared dreams. He was my best friend, my partner, my safe place. Work was demanding but rewarding. I loved my job and the people I worked with. Well, most of them. Mark was one of those colleagues I never thought twice about. We exchanged casual hellos, joked occasionally, but nothing beyond that. The company culture encouraged team bonding, and trips were part of that. I looked forward to the Chicago trip as a chance to prove myself, but I never imagined how quickly things could change. The night at the bar began innocently enough. Colleagues sharing stories, unwinding after a long day. Mark was charming and funny. He made me laugh, bought me drinks, and made me feel seen. But beneath that charm was something darker. As the drinks flowed, boundaries blurred. Mark got closer, his touch lingering longer than appropriate. I felt uneasy but hesitated to speak up, worried about rocking the boat. When I finally realized I was too intoxicated to resist, it was too late. The violation was sudden and brutal. I felt frozen, powerless, betrayed. I tried to convince myself it was a mistake, something that wouldn't define me. But the shame crept in, tightening its grip. I stopped telling Ryan the full truth. I hid my tears, my fears. I kept my distance, afraid of what he might see. At work, Mark's behavior changed. He avoided me, but didn't apologize. He acted like nothing had happened. I was left to pick up the pieces alone. At home, Ryan sensed something was wrong. He asked if I was okay, but I brushed it off. I didn't want to burden him or shatter the fragile peace. Each day I wrestled with silence. The secret ate at me, but I told myself I was protecting us. The days after that night became a blur of conflicting emotions. I was scared, ashamed, and confused. Every time Ryan asked if I was okay, I forced a smile and said, "I'm fine." Inside, I was breaking. Mark's behavior worsened. He started showing up unexpectedly at work events, lingering near my desk. His glances felt like threats. I was trapped between fear and the desperate hope that if I ignored him, it would stop. Ryan noticed the changes. He saw the shadows under my eyes, the sudden silence in my laughter. He tried to talk to me, but I pushed him away, convinced that sharing would only hurt us both. The tension grew, filling the spaces between us like a thick fog. Arguments erupted over the smallest things. I was irritable. He was frustrated. Neither of us knew how to say what was really wrong. One evening, after a particularly heated argument, I almost confessed. I opened my mouth, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I cried alone in the bathroom, feeling more isolated than ever. Mark's presence became unbearable. One day, he cornered me in the parking garage, his voice low and threatening. He warned me not to say anything, reminding me of what could happen. I was terrified, but still, I remained silent. The weight of the secret was suffocating. I was losing myself. My marriage was unraveling. Ryan's patience began to wear thin. He questioned everything. He wondered if I was hiding something else. But I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. One night, he said something that broke me. "If you don't tell me what's wrong, I don't know how to help you." I knew he was right. But fear held me back. Fear of losing him. Fear of destroying the life we built. I was caught in a storm of silence and lies. One night, after another sleepless evening filled with anxiety, I reached a breaking point. I sat alone in our bedroom, the weight of my secret crushing me from every angle. I realized I couldn't keep living this lie. Not to Ryan, not to myself. The next day, I made an appointment with a therapist. Sitting in that quiet room, I finally spoke the words I'd kept buried. I was assaulted by a coworker on a business trip. Tears streamed down my face as I recounted the night. The fear, the betrayal, the silence. For the first time, I felt heard. Therapy became my lifeline. It wasn't easy, facing the pain, the guilt, the shame, but it was the first step toward healing. I also confided in Lisa, my closest friend. Her unwavering support gave me courage. She encouraged me to tell Ryan. The hardest conversation of my life came next. One evening, I sat Ryan down. My hands trembled as I spoke, voice shaky but honest. "I need to tell you something. Something I've been hiding." I told him everything. Ryan's initial reaction was shock. His face went pale, eyes wide, but instead of anger or blame, he reached for my hand. "I'm here. I love you. We'll get through this." His words felt like a balm to my broken soul. Together, we decided to report Mark's behavior to HR. It was terrifying. Mark denied everything, tried to turn the story around. But we stood firm. Ryan stood by me every step of the way. Our relationship was tested like never before, but it was real. The process wasn't perfect. There were setbacks, painful reminders, moments when I doubted if I could ever trust again. But slowly, trust began to rebuild. With therapy, communication, and patience, Ryan and I started to heal. Mark was eventually disciplined. I no longer felt trapped by fear. Most importantly, I reclaimed my voice. Months passed since I finally told Ryan the truth. It wasn't easy. There were moments when the weight of everything threatened to pull me under again. But I was no longer alone. Ryan became my rock. He listened without judgment. He held me during the darkest nights, and he reminded me every day that I was loved beyond measure. Therapy sessions helped me piece myself back together. I learned to separate my worth from what happened to me, to forgive myself for the guilt I'd carried. I rebuilt my confidence slowly. Taking small steps, going out with friends, speaking up at work, even dating again when I was ready. Our marriage grew stronger. We learned to communicate openly, to be vulnerable, to support one another unconditionally. The scars from that night will always be part of me, but they don't define me. I'm stronger, wiser, more compassionate, and most importantly, I'm hopeful. Hopeful for the future, for the love that can survive even the darkest storms. I want anyone listening to know this. Your story isn't over. Healing is possible. You are not alone, and love, real love, is worth fighting for. After months of healing, Ryan and I began to rebuild our life, not as if nothing had happened, but as something new and stronger. We attended couples therapy, learning how to communicate in ways we never had before. There were still hard days, moments when the past crept in uninvited, but we faced them together. No longer was I carrying my pain alone. Ryan surprised me one evening with a simple gesture. He cooked dinner. Not a fancy meal, just homemade pasta. But what mattered was the effort, the love in every bite. That night we talked, not about the trauma, but about dreams, about travel, about starting a family, about what our life could look like beyond the pain. I realized that healing isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. Together, we planted new roots, found joy in the mundane, built traditions that were ours alone. I also made a promise, to myself and to anyone who might face similar darkness, that no one should suffer in silence, that speaking up is the first step toward freedom. So now when I think back to that night, I don't just feel pain. I feel strength, resilience, hope. And as we walk forward hand in hand, I know this is only the beginning. Because sometimes, the hardest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. Looking back on everything, I realize how much I've changed. The trauma, the silence, the heartbreak, they didn't break me. Instead, they forged a new version of myself. I learned that healing isn't linear. Some days I feel strong and hopeful. Others, I'm overwhelmed by sadness or fear. And that's okay. I found strength in vulnerability. Sharing my story with trusted friends, family, and even strangers has been liberating. It reminded me that I'm not alone, and neither is anyone else who's faced pain. I discovered the power of self-compassion. Instead of blaming myself, I started treating myself with kindness. Recognizing that mistakes don't define me. My relationship with Ryan deepened. We communicate more honestly now. We support each other through challenges. We celebrate small victories. I also became passionate about helping others. I volunteer at support groups. I speak about my experience, hoping to inspire others to find their voice. I'm still learning, still growing. But I face the future with courage, knowing that no matter what comes, I have the tools to navigate it. And to anyone listening who's hurting, you are stronger than you think. Your story matters, and healing is possible. The future is uncertain, and that's what makes it beautiful. I don't know what lies ahead, but I'm no longer afraid to face it. I've learned to celebrate the small moments, the quiet mornings, the unexpected laughter, the warmth of a hand to hold. These fragments of joy are the foundation of my new life. I've discovered that hope is not a destination, but a daily choice. A choice to believe in better days, even when the night feels endless. Love has returned to my life, not as a perfect fairy tale, but as a real, imperfect partnership. With someone who accepts me fully, scars and all. Together we build a life based on trust, respect, and compassion. We embrace our flaws and learn from them. I continue to share my story, hoping it will light the way for others navigating their own darkness. My past will always be a part of me, but it no longer defines me. Every day, I choose to move forward with courage and grace. And as I walk into the unknown, I carry with me the lessons of resilience, hope, and love. Because life is not about avoiding the storm, it's about learning to dance in the rain. As I look back on my journey, I realize the story isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to every person who's faced pain and chose to rise. I've begun mentoring others, women and men who struggle in silence, sharing my story not for pity, but for power. For the reminder that healing is possible and no one is alone. I speak at events, contribute to podcasts, and write openly about trauma, resilience, and love. Each time I share, I feel lighter, as if releasing a burden I once carried alone. My story has become a beacon, a light in the darkness for those who need it most. I've learned that legacy isn't about grand gestures. It's about the small acts of courage, saying I'm here, you're not alone, we'll get through this. Ryan and I have built a life filled with love, respect, and honest communication. We face challenges, but we face them hand in hand. Most importantly, I've learned to be kind to myself, to celebrate my strength without forgetting my scars. The past is a chapter, not the whole book. And I'm writing the next pages with hope, courage, and light. To anyone reading this, your voice matters. Your pain matters. Your story is waiting to be told. Don't be afraid to shine, because sometimes your light is exactly what someone else needs to see. After years of pain, silence, and healing, I finally stand at the edge of a new chapter. The woman I once was, the one haunted by fear and doubt, has transformed. I'm no longer defined by what happened to me, but by how I chose to rise above it. It wasn't an easy journey. There were days when the weight of the past threatened to pull me under. Moments when I questioned whether I was strong enough to keep going. But each time I found a flicker of light, whether in a friend's comforting words, a therapist's guidance, or the quiet strength within myself. I learned that healing isn't a destination. It's a continuous process. Some days the pain still surfaces unexpectedly. But now, I meet it with compassion instead of fear. I remind myself that scars are proof of survival, not weakness. With Ryan, our relationship evolved into something I hadn't thought possible after everything. We stopped pretending. We began to be truly present with each other. We shared our fears, hopes, and dreams without judgment. Together we navigated the complexities of rebuilding trust. It wasn't a straight path. There were setbacks and misunderstandings. But our commitment to growth and honesty kept us moving forward. Beyond our relationship, I rediscovered passions that had been dormant. I returned to writing, pouring my heart into words that helped me make sense of my experiences. I started volunteering, offering support to others facing similar struggles. Giving back became part of my healing. Helping others gave me purpose beyond my own pain. It reminded me that I wasn't alone, and neither was anyone else. I also embraced new opportunities, traveling to places I'd only dreamed of. Meeting people from different walks of life who enriched my perspective. Learning to appreciate the beauty of imperfection in myself and the world around me. The future still holds uncertainty. I don't know what's next, and that's okay. Because I've learned to embrace the unknown. To trust that I have the strength to face whatever comes. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at the little things. The way sunlight filters through the leaves. The sound of laughter shared with friends. The quiet moments of solitude that fill me with peace. I've learned to celebrate these moments as milestones. Proof that life continues, and joy can be found even after darkness. Most importantly, I've learned to love myself fiercely, to honor my journey. To recognize that my story, every twist and turn, is valuable and worthy of being told. As I step into this new horizon, I carry with me the lessons of the past. Resilience, courage, hope, and a deep understanding that my story isn't just about survival, it's about thriving. To anyone who hears these words, your journey matters, your voice matters, your future is waiting. Step forward with confidence, embrace your new horizons, and know that you are not alone.